right into, I believe, one of the great events that occurs annually here in Rhode Island. Of course, and I want to get the full title right, it's the Rhode Island Festival of Children's Books and Authors. It's happening next Saturday. I got that right?
That's right.
Next Saturday at the Lincoln School at the end of Blackstone Boulevard, 301 Butler, but it's at the end of the boulevard. It's really an astonishing day, and it's one of the hidden gems of Rhode Island. And all kudos to Lincoln this year because they seem to be working overtime to get the word out. Now imagine if you could, within simple driving distance here in Rhode Island, attend one of the preeminent children's book festivals in the nation. What do I mean by that? You've got an entire day from roughly 9:30 in the morning till late afternoon where you'll have literally the finest children's book authors in America on site. You'll have discussions about the books. Each author will spend about 30 minutes or so discussing their lives, their style of writing, readings from their books. Their books will be available for signature, for autograph. You'll have children's writing workshops. We'll get into this all in detail. There'll be crafts. There'll be food trucks. It's everything we hold near and dear here in Rhode Island, and yet you've got this astonishing event taking place right here in our hometown. It happens on an annual basis. Joining me in studio, we've got three folks lined up tonight to discuss it. A person who I'll always affectionately refer to as Miss Meagan, is Meagan Lenihan. She is what I described in our promotional run-up to the show as one of the mavens, if you will, of children's literature at the Lincoln School. Welcome to the Coalition for the first time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now this is wonderful. Now, how many, roughly, I'm not going to put you on the spot, roughly, how many years has this been happening?
Roughly about 26 years. It was on hiatus for 10 years, and we've been back for about 14.
14. And so it literally takes over the campus, if you will.
It does.
You know, and not only are local authors involved, but you've got authors coming from literally around the globe. All right? You know, you've got folks flying in. You know, I'm gonna list a couple. First of all, Chris Vanosburgh. Now, Chris Vanosburgh is a legend in children's literature. You know, the Polar Express, Jumanji, all popular fiction, all memorialized in one of my favorites, one of my most subversive, I think, of his books. It's beautifully illustrated, it's beautifully written, is The Z Was Zapped.
Yes,
yes. One of the favorites in our household. Chris Vanosburgh has spent a lot of time in the Providence community and comes back every year as a seminal feature of this. Another one is David Macaulay. Again, this is an important point. A great book for little boys and little girls is The Way Things Work, and its entire series of books dedicated to literally household items and how they work.
Yes, yes.
All right. Who are some other authors?
We have Sharice Miracle Harper coming. She wrote the Just Grace series, and she has also done picture books. She actually writes for early childhood right through middle school, which is pretty exciting. We have Ann M. Martin, who has written The Doll People, and many people know her for the Babysitters Club, which was popular when I was younger. We have Mark Brown, who's huge, who wrote the Arthur books.
Right. Or in my household, it was known as Arthur's Pet Business.
Yeah.
when it was little. So, you know, also we've got Kara LaReau, who's going to be joining us a little later in the hour, and discuss some of her literature and her experiences, both as an editor and as a children's book author. You know, just going through some of the names. There's a major motion picture that's going to be, in a sense, previewed here, which is a treatment of a children's book. Tell us about that.
Sara Weeks wrote the book Sobia, and we are actually lucky to premiere the movie of Sobia at the book festival on Friday night.
Right, excellent. Is that open to the public as well?
It is open to the public. It's $10 per ticket, but there's going to be a red carpet. We're going to have a step and repeat. We have some paparazzi. It's going to be just a really, really fun event. Oh, there are going to be food trucks too, so you can make a whole night of it.
Absolutely. Tell us about that. Tell us about that movie in the book.
Well, Sobia is a fantastic movie about this young girl Heidi who is searching for her history. And her mother has some disabilities. She only has 23 words in her vocabulary, so Heidi does not know where she comes from. And she finds a little clue to her history and in a picture that she finds in her apartment, and it takes her on this amazing journey.
Now, we talk about the authors are each going to make a presentation. So first of all, it starts at what time? It starts at?
On Saturday, it starts at 9:30.
Right.
No, 9 o'clock to 5:30, I'm sorry.
9 o'clock to 5:30.
But on Friday night, we're kicking it off at 4:30 with the authors signing. And we have 2 amazing food trucks. We have Champion Melt, and we also have Haven Brothers, which is kind of exciting. And then the movie premiere actually starts at 6. The author of Sobia, Sara Weeks, will be there, so she's going to be available for a Q&A after the movie, which is very exciting.
Outstanding. The next day it starts at 9.
Yep.
Now this is on campus.
On campus.
All right. And we're I mean, there's ample parking in the neighborhood. There's plenty of parking. That's not a concern. Now again, $5 per ticket.
Yes.
That's.
It's pretty amazing, actually, for
yeah.
what the day. So we have all the authors and illustrators give 30-minute presentations throughout the day.
What can we expect as far as what they'll talk about? Will
That's
they do
a tough
readings?
question.
Or?
That's a really tough question because each author is different, and we give them the opportunity. We say you have 30 minutes and you can do with it whatever you want. So some of the presentations are interactive. Some of them are PowerPoint presentations. Some of them are readings. So you never know what you're going to get, but they're all wonderful.
Right, and books will be for sale.
Books are for sale. We only sell books by the authors who are coming to the book festival.
Okay, and I believe up to 3 of the current books you can bring in.
Yes, if you have 3 books at your house that you own by authors that are going to be at the festival, you.
To me, what's astonishing, that's what's happened in the last 10 or 20 years, is that great children's authors have become sort of rock stars in their own right. I mean, little kids who are reading these books, kiddos I call them, they're in love with these books, and they're the level of excitement you see when they get to meet an author, it's really just it's very changing for them. It elevates these authors to a completely different level, doesn't it?
Oh, it's so exciting! It really is so exciting, and the authors are so excited to be there as well. So it really is just a fun day.
Right. So you're also going to have writing workshops, Sarah?
We are. Write RI is going to be there. The Goat Hill Writers are giving 2 workshops. I believe it's at 1 and at 3. And they're taking up to 15 people per workshop, and it's for young adults. So that's really exciting. We also, it's very festival-like. We are going to have celebrity readers on the front lawn reading books that we're selling. We have temporary tattoos, base painting.
Right.
It's just going to be a really fun day.
Right. Now that's outstanding. The books will be for sale. So literally, you could spend a good part of the day there.
Oh, definitely.
Working your way through. This isn't when I was younger, a long time ago, when I was younger, the Scholastic book, and the wonderful people at Scholastic, but the Scholastic book truck would show up and you'd have 15 or 20 minutes. This is really a celebration of reading, isn't it?
Yes, this really is.
Yeah. And one of the things I want to discuss with kids at Some Life too is this is an opportunity for parents who really want their kids to read, but may need a little bit of direction. And I want to talk about that at some length in a few minutes because, it's so challenging now. I mean, and I'll never denigrate, say, the Disney books or those, but there's this wealth of children's literature that you're going to celebrate at this festival that really transcends popular culture literature. It's a world unto itself, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right. Now, there's 2 awards that I'll sort of liken to the Emmys and the Academy Awards, if you will. There's the Newbery Award, and then there's the Caldecott. Could you explain those and some of the authors, actually a number of the authors there are recipients of these, right?
Well, Chris Van Allsburg has won the Caldecott Award, 3 times? 3 times? 2 or 3 times? But he has also received the Caldecott honor. The Caldecott Award is for a picture book, for the best picture book of the year. The Newbery Award is for a chapter book.
Okay.
And actually there's another award, the Theodore Geisel Award, which Kara has won, who you're going to be hearing from very shortly.
And by the way, who is Theodore Geisel?
Dr. Seuss.
Right.
Right. So we're very lucky to have award-winning authors and illustrators at the book festival.
Right. And you're going to do crafts too. Now these aren't just the normal, as I love to tease my daughter, pasta art crafts. So you're getting a little involved in bookmaking, or to talk about some of the crafts that you're doing.
Well, I think that first I need to say that this year we are celebrating Waldo. He is turning 30. The Where's Waldo books.
Yikes.
And the red and white stripes.
Right.
So Waldo is going to be at the book festival. And so we're doing some crafts around Waldo.
Okay.
And we're also doing a scavenger hunt with Waldo too, which is going to be a lot of fun. But no, you're right. We also do like a little bookmaking craft. We have some of the art teachers and Javon Kalenda, the studio teacher at Lincoln.
And
who are
by,
really taking up.
let me just say something about Javon. If you haven't had a chance to meet her at the prior book festivals, I would describe her as sort of a force of nature.
I would too.
When it comes to art. One of the most talented, most unique educators that I've ever had the pleasure of meeting. She works, she's a regular art teacher at the Lincoln School. She works with the tiniest of tots, the wee little ones, the wee little beasties as we call them, and just brings out a level of expression from these children. This is not color within the lines, this is not pasta art, this is working with different media, working with so a chance, if you don't have the opportunity to have her as a teacher, a chance to even spend a little bit of time with Siobhan is just really amazing. She changes kids' lives.
No, she definitely does.
She's one of those teachers. So that'll be going on.
Yeah, and I also have to say Lawrence Timmons, who is the
Right.
middle school art teacher, the two of them together have created some really fantastic art projects
Right.
for kids to do. So it's going to be great.
Right, and this is really a reflection of the school too. It's an opportunity for the Lincoln School to sort of open its doors and show folks, what goes on, at an all-girls prep school and some of the unique facets of it. Because for example, the art program, and we plan to have at some point in time in November, we're going to have some folks on from the Lincoln School administration. But there's an art program at Lincoln School. Art begins really at the youngest age. It's hard to describe an art education for small children as a formal art education, but it really is, it plants the seeds for one, if in fact a child wants to pursue art. But there's literally an art major at the high school level at Lincoln where you take a full college load, but at the same time you spend 10 to 12 hours per week in studio, working at a high level with a variety of media, engaged in a real study of how to prepare a portfolio. That's run by Anita, who's a graduate of the Rhode Island School of Design. So it's a reflection of that, which is also a reflection, and it plants the system, the art, if you will, also plants the seeds for Lincoln's advanced work with young women in terms of technology. So there's a process that begins at a very young organic level that can allow a young woman to really blossom in terms of her artistic technical skills, while at the same time giving a truly classical education.
Oh, yeah.
Now there will be on Saturday, there will be food trucks as well after for lunch. Who's going to be there?
Okay, we have Rocket. The Rocket truck is going to be there. We have Like No Udder, who does the ice cream, which is absolutely fantastic. We have the pizza truck. Gilded Tomato is going to be there as well. Am I missing anyone? I think that's it.
So you can come there with your kiddo. You don't have to take them somewhere expensive for lunch. They'll be the trucks will be right there.
And there. I also have to say there are. We have tables and we put blankets out so you can sit right in the front lawn and eat your lunch.
Eat your lunch, take a break.
Take a break.
Little kids going to be little kids.
Yep. Run around a little bit, hear some stories outside.
And after a full and rewarding day at the Lincoln School, the best reward for you as a parent, A, the knowledge that you've given your children an insight into a world that that might be a little different than they've seen before, and B, they'll be completely exhausted.
They will be.
So you as a parent, well, that's outstanding. Now tickets are available for the Saturday show. They'll be available
for the Friday night. Yeah, for the Saturday they're going to be available at the door. For the Friday night show, you can go to lincolnschool.org to get your tickets for the movie.
Right.
Can I just say one more thing? Okay, great. Gaia Cornwall, who is one of the authors that's coming to the book festival, she wrote this amazing book, Jabari Jumps. She has partnered us with Books Are Wings to. So we are looking for book donations as well. Okay,
so people can bring books, clean, fairly intact books.
Yep.
And Books Are Wings is a phenomenal organization. Now they've been around for a very, very long time. In fact, I think in the earliest days of the festival, you guys were tied in with Books Are Wings. At the time, I think it was sponsored by. Remember Hospital Trust Bank?
I
do. So Books Are Wings, if you're not familiar with it, it's an outreach program where you donate books, and it's, by the way, if you have an older child who may have outgrown those mountains of books, everything from the Babysitter's Club to Winn-Dixie to everything in between, it's a great opportunity to donate them, to bring them to the Lincoln School, to some place that they'll go and be well cared for, and most importantly, well read.
Yes.
So it sounds great.
Yeah, it's going to be really fun.
So here you go. I have Kate on now.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much
Thank you
for
so
having
much.
me on, Pat.
All right. Kate, come on down. Hi, how are you?
Hi, good. How are you?
Thank you so much for coming on. Kate, Lentz
Thanks for
is,
having me.
again, my term, not hers, is one of the children's reading Mavens, if you will.
Okay. Love that, but I'm not sure I'm worthy.
At the Lincoln School. To me, I grew up in a family where my mom, my late mom, was literally the chairman of the town library. So I grew up in a house where you were surrounded by books that you had to take out from the library. And one of my earliest acts of rebellion was to actually go out and buy a book and say, ha, 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 this is mine, I own it. I don't have to bring it back on time, because I was also the scofflaw in town. But the challenge for a lot of parents who are very, very well intentioned and want their children to read is to find a way to discover children's literature. And it's, if you're not immersed in it on a day-to-day basis, I don't want to say you can take it for granted, but you're just not exposed to the variety of children's literature. So you may fall, and my words, not yours, prey to what I'll call the populist literature. You'll get the Disney books and you'll get this or that, and you may trip onto something, but it's hard as a parent to discover this if you're, say, an accountant for a living and you're just not exposed to it. To me, one of the most wonderful aspects of the festival is that this gives a chance for parents to see really an entirely different world of children's literature out there. Can you give folks some tips on where to look for kids' books now? If you've got, and you can never start too early. You need to start reading literally from birth. It's life-changing. But what do you do if you're a parent and say, I don't know what to read to my kid, what do I get?
Well, my number one tip would be first to go to the library, because your local elementary school librarian is going to have an amazing selection of books. And I think something that the book festival does, which doesn't get highlighted as much, is community outreach. And throughout the summer, we're all working with publishers, and all these publishers who are bringing authors to the festival are also donating books by those authors. So we do a lot of community outreach, and we're going into communities where children don't have access to books, either because their libraries don't have the budget to buy those books, or because they don't have those books in their own houses and they live in underserved areas. So we're going into those areas, giving them books, giving them passes to the book festival, giving them passes to have a free lunch with the food trucks, and to come and experience what it's like to meet an author. And that is honestly life-changing when you're given a book, a hardcover book, and you go and you meet the author who wrote the book, and those authors and illustrators become rock stars to these kids, because their librarians are promoting the books and they're coming to the book festival to meet the authors. So I would start at the library and with your librarian, but know that we do as much outreach as we can to get kids to the festival.
Right, it's something as a parent, the first time you see your child just sort of immersed. We have a great picture of one of my daughters. We were actually in London. This is years and years and years ago, and my daughter is sitting at the base of a pub, and she's reading what we affectionately refer to in our house as Cat Hat, because that's how it was. That's what it was called. And the fact that she had Cat Hat memorized completely, but still insisted on turning the pages at the proper time and not allowing me to read it, that I had to read it to her, even though I had it memorized at that time. It's really, it's an ennobling moment as a parent, because you're just so happy to see the kids, just the joy when they're finally exposed to some of this literature. And that's a bit, I mean, what grade levels are going to be present at the festival? What years does the books cover?
We're going all the way through. I'm nursery through high school, and I think the past couple of years we've really expanded to reach that teen audience with a writer's workshop and young adult literature, and giving teens that access to books and authors. But the Arthur books and all the picture books, you right from nursery school right to high school. But then also there are a lot of teachers and librarians who come to learn about all the hot books, and we have 2 children's literature experts who will be telling us about all the hot books of the year and what to expect. So there's something for everyone.
Right.
Yeah.
So parents, grandparents,
Grandparents.
particularly if hypothetically you're a grandparent and you want to dote on your grandchild, this is a really good time to do it.
This is a great time to do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we also have workshops for RISD students. So it's college, it's high school, it's elementary, it's everything.
And another gift suggestion too, if for example you're at work and one of your coworkers just had a child or is about to have a child, the opportunity to get the Polar Express or something. I mean, one year we gave a copy of the Polar Express, which had been autographed. I mean, that's an heirloom. That's not just it's a book and that much more.
I know. I think we take Chris Vanosburgh for granted because he has been in Rhode Island so long. He lives in Massachusetts now, but he is really responsible for starting this whole book festival. But you go to the book festival and the lines are still out the door to have a book signed by Chris Vanosburgh. People come from, Massachusetts, Connecticut,
Well, Chris
Maine.
and Lisa, his wife, have been there for the Lincoln community really for a generation.
And honestly, I think that's why we get so many huge authors to come, because they host a dinner for the authors, and the chance to have dinner with Chris Vanosburgh, it's there's nothing like that.
Yeah, no, exactly. Well, that speaks to a great question. I mean, Rhode Island, and again, if you're not involved in this community, sometimes you may miss this, but Rhode Island is legitimately a true center of children's literature.
It is.
We've got an winning author going to join us in just a couple minutes. We spent a lifetime, not just as a writer, but as an editor.
Oh my goodness, she's amazing.
At a very high level. Yet Rhode Island just attracts it. David Macaulay, Chris Vanosburgh, but legions of others who have operated at different levels. What is it? What is the secret sauce? What do you think? Is it RISD or what? How does this happen?
That's such a good question. I don't know, but I'm still finding out, about authors, and I think because I'm the director of the Rhode Island Center for the Book, we had a couple of years ago a challenge to have the first literary landmark in the state for children's literature, and I was like, what are we going to do? Because the author has to not be alive anymore. But Margaret Wise Brown, all her papers are at the Westerly Library, and I didn't even know that. But so I'm always discovering new things about Rhode Island and how rich the children's literature world is here.
Again, one of my favorite Vanosburgh books. I mean, there are some classics. The Z was Zapped.
Oh yeah.
By the way, it's rumored that a Lincoln teacher is actually in there. I'll say
and
that.
The Z was Zapped.
Meagan,
who is that?
Doris.
Oh no, she's in the Queen of the Falls.
Oh, okay. That's what she was at. Okay.
Yeah.
Queen of the Falls. Okay.
Yeah.
But it's the strength of the illustration, and a lot of that has to come from RISD. I so often, my words, not my guess, but I often say that if it wasn't for Brown and RISD, we'd be Bridgeport or something. I don't know what. Life would be completely different. The illustration program at the Rhode Island School of Design
amazing
is the best.
Yep.
It's just it's or as people at RISD like to say, Harvard is the RISD of art school, but again, you've got these phenomenal illustrators.
Yes.
Who and that's probably the single biggest difference for someone of my generation, I'm older than you guys, where children's literature was there, but it was really very often watered down versions of adult books. Which was great because there were some great chapter books out there, but you never had this diversity of illustration that you have now. I mean, the illustrator in today's children's book is seen as a partner almost of the author itself. It's really a collaborative effort, isn't it?
Or sometimes one and the same, the illustrator.
Well,
the same.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So do you have which I want to bring our author on in a second, but do you have a highlight? What's your favorite part of the day?
I have so many favorite parts of the day. Well, these authors and illustrators are rock stars to me, so just the chance to meet them and interact with them and find out about their craft. But just, there's always a moment at the festival when, it's craziness and there's kids running around and getting their face painting, but there's always that one child who's just gotten a book signed and is sitting down to read it and doesn't realize all the commotion that's going on around them. And that is, it takes your breath away. It's just so moving every single time because the those simple things, getting a book and being able to read it and meeting the author.
The glow that's on that child's
Yeah,
face.
it's amazing.
They're just immersed. Right, they're oblivious to the rest of the world.
And I feel like I always look, we have John Cheska coming back, and I love those fractured fairy tales. So it's so fun to see him interact, and I'm looking forward to seeing him again with the kids. Always just hilarious.
Because one of the underreported aspects of reading to your children with great literature is that very often these books are also very subversively directed at parents.
Fun. There's so much in there for parents.
And that is the parents reading it with a knowing chuckle, and the kids looking at you, what's so funny? We've all had that moment. No, and that's why this is, folks. If you're just joining us, in fact, you are listening to the Coalition on the Worldwide Coalition Media Network. Got a little ahead of myself with time. Just take a quick break to acknowledge our sponsors. Beacon Shipping and Logistics, beaconshippinglogistics.com. Of course, they have been with us since the very beginning. If you have an automobile that you need to sell, that you need to move, that you bought online, a family member across the country, imagine, if you will, a company with global reach that's based right here in Warwick, Rhode Island. So you're talking to your neighbors to bring that car that you just bought online in California, that Mustang, or that car that you're shipping out to your child's college in Colorado. Nationwide, door-to-door, reliable transportation, of course, that's their motto. So beaconshippinglogistics.com. Folks, if you're just joining us, we're featuring tonight, and we're going to have them, the Lincoln School, on a couple times in the next year. But we're featuring, of course, the annual Rhode Island's Children's Book Festival, as I call it. It's a celebration of children's books and authors. It's taking place next weekend at the Lincoln School. There's events happening Friday night, a red carpet experience, if you will, highlighting a brand new movie that's going to be premiered regionally here in Providence, with food trucks and a gala to match. Saturday, all day from 9 to 5 o'clock in the Lincoln School. Now, of course, it's 301 Butler Avenue. It's at the end of Blackstone Boulevard. That's how everyone thinks of it, just right on the other side of Wayland Square. If you're coming from all the way over, I don't know, from the north side of town. But you talk about astonishing experiences here in town, in our little Rhode, La Prave, as we like to say on the Coalition. You've got one of the premier children's book festivals in the nation happening right here. Great local authors like David Macaulay, Chris von Osburgh, authors from around the country fly in. Again, book signings, readings, really intelligent crafts, writing workshops, entertainment, fun, food, everything. Books are going to be for sale, and I'm sure there's a couple parents out there who are going to get, this is for my daughter. Yeah, okay. It's okay. But, in the run, we're just, dare I say, we're starting to approach the holiday season. So for a parent, or particularly a grandparent, it's a great way to spend a day bonding with your child, reading, having fun, celebrating reading. There's an element of this which says, right, reading can be just a blast. It doesn't have to be drudgery. And I'm convinced if you just through your own words and actions reflect that as a parent when the children are very, very young, it changes their outlook for life, doesn't it?
It's so true. Yeah.
So tickets are for Friday night's event on sale at LincolnSchool.org.
Yep.
All right, and for Saturday, and tickets are available you have to buy tickets in advance for Friday, I believe, correct?
Well, you can buy at the door, but I always suggest advance because they're going quickly, and we are one of 12 cities across the country that will be premiering the movie of the book Sobia, and Sara Weeks, the author, will be joining us for a Q&A with an amazing elementary school librarian. Melanie Roy is going to be doing a Q&A with her after, and we're going to have a red carpet. It's going to be a big premiere. It's going to be super fun, and you can buy a copy of the book, or you can bring your book and talk to Sarah and have it signed.
Right, so buy your tickets now.
Yep.
And again, very important, if you've got lightly used books or new books or just leftover books from when your kiddos were maybe a couple years ago and they've grown out of, don't let them just accumulate and gather dust and, God forbid, disintegrate. Books with Wings is a wonderful organization, a wonderful way to take those books and literally give them a second life.
Yep. So you can bring those to the book festival. You can bring them to Lincoln School before the festival. We have boxes set up. Gaia Cornwell, our a local amazing author, is going to in Illustrators is spearheading this drive for us this year. So.
All right. Super. Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Thank
for coming
you
in.
so much.
All right. Next up, because we're going right through this. We're having a lot of laughs here, but it's just a wonderful event. LaReau is joining us. She is a local author with a national and international reach, and she's going to join us in just a second. Is Kara out there?
Oh, yeah, right here.
Ah.
Why, you need me? Where do you want me? Right
Hi.
here?
Yeah, please have a
Hi.
seat. So, if you're just joining us, in this hour we're visiting with the folks from the Lincoln School, well, actually the Rhode Island Festival of Children's Books and Authors. It's held annually at the Lincoln School. It's been going on and off now for 25 to 30 years. It is one of the most important children's book festivals in the nation. What's unique about this is not only does it support international talent, but it also brings a lot of international talent who happens to be local here. Welcome to the coalition.
Thank you.
All right.
It's nice to be here.
Nice to be here.
Thanks
Now,
for having me.
just since I'm sharing a couple of personal anecdotes,
Please do.
you were involved with a book because you've had literally 2 different careers. You've been both an editor at a very high level,
This is true.
all right,
Yeah.
and also a children's author. You probably didn't know this, but Despereaux actually, for a short period of time, actually lived in Cumberland, Rhode Island. There was actually
so?
a small mouse with big dreams.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm sure there's more than one.
Right, but
Yeah.
but she was in Cumberland,
Yeah.
Rhode Island, and
Interesting.
we still celebrate that book, and we have the collectible lunchbox, and the we went to the movie the first night it was
Oh,
out
wow.
in the middle of a blizzard because Despereaux was a small mouse with big dreams.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you have a fascinating background. You have a master's in fine arts from Emerson.
I do.
Okay, and so.
You've clearly done your homework.
Well, it's a lot of fun. The great part about having your own show is you get to interview and meet all the kind of
Yeah.
really cool people that normally you just wouldn't get to talk to.
That's right.
So this is just a lot of fun for me. So you actually started out on the editing side.
I did, yes.
So you're with Scholastic, a few other imprints
I was
as well.
with Candlewick Press
Mhm.
for just under a decade, and then I was at Scholastic Press for about 3 or 4 years. Yes.
Right. So you worked on, you talk about seminal children's books. You, according to what I researched, you worked on Winn-Dixie.
I did. Yes. Yes.
That's,
I guess I'm the one who discovered Kate, if you
Kate
can
Camillo.
say that.
Yep.
Kate DiCamillo, yes. I was, I believe, an editorial assistant at the time. I think I was 26.
Wow.
Yes. But I was a very hungry 26-year-old editor. And when I was brought into Candlewick, one of my first jobs there was to clean out the office of an editor who had gone on maternity leave and had decided not to come back. And so there were a lot of manuscripts in her office that were waiting for someone to give them attention.
Right.
They were submissions, I should say. And so I would bring home these boxes of manuscripts and read through them and decide how to respond to them and make notes on them as to how they should be attended to. And one of them was because of Winn-Dixie. And I had read enough manuscripts at that point to know that this one was really special, although it wasn't, it was similar to the book that you read today, but it was a couple of drafts away from the book that you could read today. But I could tell right off the bat that this person really knew how to tell a story. This person was a craftsperson. And so at the time, I had no ability to sign up a book on my own, but I wrote a very impassioned editorial letter to my boss and just said, we have to sign this book up. And I went into her office and I handed it to her and I said, you have to take a look at this. And I really credit her that, first of all, that she saw the same thing that I did in it, which wasn't very hard to see, but that she then allowed me to edit the book.
Wow. That's an awesome responsibility.
Yes, yes. Although at the time the book came out, fiction really wasn't on the rise. Really, picture books were kind of the hot commodity.
Right.
This is back in the sort of mid to late 90s. It was sort of right before, or just before, sort of the Harry Potter craze that really kind of brought middle grade novels and novels in general back into vogue. So it wasn't so strange to have someone inexperienced working on fiction because that wasn't seen to be sort of the hot thing to work on.
Right.
So it was a way for me to kind of learn the ways of publishing. But yes, it was an incredible, looking back on it now, it's like, how did they let me work on that book? But it was also, I was really hungry, and just put everything I had into that book, just everything I had.
Talk to me about Despereaux, because you get personal. I mean, just how did that book evolve?
Well, that's a funny story, and Kate has told this story too. That she sent me the first 30 pages of that book, and she was very, didn't seem very confident about it, and just said like, I don't really know what this is, and it was obviously it's very different from Because of Winn-Dixie, which is takes place in the South, and it's fairly realistic, and this book is like it's a fairy tale. It's a
dark but very challenging but fascinating fairy tale.
That's right.
And it celebrates in its own way a celebration of people's individuality.
That's right. But it was very different from what she had written before, which were these very Southern novels about real kids with real problems, and I think that there are some publishers who would prefer that an author would kind of, if they're done really well writing a certain thing, they want more of that same thing. And so I think that's where some of her insecurity came from. Like, I don't know if this is too different for you. And for me, whether I'm an editor or an author, it all comes down to, is it a good story? And it clearly was. And so my response to her was maybe 2 words, and it was just keep writing. And that's how it started. She just kept writing that story and delivered it to me, and off we went again with going back and forth and editing that book.
And to me, it's what's fascinating as someone who's not a writer, but I think I can appreciate great writing, is that both books were amazingly written, amazing reads, and both translated into really interesting movies too.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, they're very cinematic. They're both very cinematic. She's a very cinematic writer, so they lend themselves to the big screen.
Okay. So what was that creative spark? What was that moment when you said, okay, I've spent a number of years working with writers. What was the moment when you decided you had to make the leap yourself?
Well, it's funny because I had always been a writer. When I went to grad school, I went to school for writing, and so I'd always considered myself a writer. But when I needed to make some money, which is why I decided to go into publishing. And then, you fall in love with working with other people and helping them to make their stories better. And you just throw all your creative energy into that. And that's what I did for a really long time. While I was editing, I did get inspired. You just get inspired by working around so many creative people. And that led me to say, I get some ideas. The ideas just came to me, and I said, maybe I'll try during my downtime to write a couple things. And I didn't have a lot of downtime, so the first things I wrote were picture books. Those are the first things I had published.
Right.
I didn't have the time to sit down and really think about the full story of the investment that a novel or even a chapter book requires. And then I left and I went to Scholastic for a while, and then I ended up getting laid off at the beginning of sort of the Great Recession. I think they called it Black Wednesday or Black Tuesday, when a lot of people in publishing they downsized everyone. I opened my own freelance consulting business for a while. I did that. I still worked with authors on their books, but I just felt like I wasn't giving my own stories a chance.
Right.
And I just thought, gosh, if I just had some time to myself to make that happen, I could write something longer. I could really invest in my own career. But it's like I wasn't willing to give myself that time. I always felt like these other authors I was working with were so talented and so successful. Of course, they were more important than me, than little old me in my writing.
Well, it's interesting because I once heard an interview with Jeff Daniels, who ironically I believe was in
the Winn-Dixie movie.
Right.
Yes.
And Jeff Daniels talked about how, like every other starving young actor, you're faced with that moment in time where you have to make a decision to either just jump into your craft wholeheartedly without reservation, no safety net, or you always sort of try and keep that safety net around you. And I guess
Yeah.
that's one of the most challenging moments in the life of
Yeah.
an artist or
Yeah.
a writer or someone theatrical.
That's right.
And what he pointed out was that in his experience, unless you were willing to make that dive, and it's a subject I've always been fascinated by, unless you're willing to really jump in,
Yeah.
no life vest, no safety net, no,
That's right. Yeah.
you inevitably, so few people can succeed if they hold that back.
That's right. Well, it's funny that you say that because for me, I didn't do that on my own. It happened for me because right around the time, so probably 1 year into having my own business, I got diagnosed with cancer, and I like went through treatments, and I'm fine now. But that was a real reality check for me.
Right.
That first of all, I finally got the time that I needed, the time off
Right.
from my work that I was saying, if I only had that time off,
Right.
and finally I had months that, I was going through these treatments and, I was healing, that I wasn't doing, I wasn't working. And it really put everything into perspective for me and made me rethink my life and what was really important. And that's when I was like, I can't put this off anymore.
Right.
I've really got to give it my full attention.
Give it a shot.
Yeah, and
run
so
with it.
I retired from editing. I just said I'm not going to do it anymore.
Cold turkey.
Relatively cold turkey, and I just started doing it.
Now, I've got to ask you, one of the things that's always fascinated me about children's books, for years, for generations, there was this preconceived notion of me growing up. I'm a child of the 60s. Was that children's books had to have a point, had to have a morality play in it, there was an objective, there was some type of reason the book had to exist. Is that, I see that as far less the case now, that you're writing books that are standalone works of writing that stand by themselves. I'm repeating myself here, but in a sense, a standalone on their own merits.
Yeah.
And if there is a morality in that or a happy ending or something, well, that's part of the process, but it's not the objective.
That's right. Well, for me, and I think for a lot of people in publishing, the first priority is it a good story? Right. It has to be a good story. It has to work as a good story. If you learn something, if there's an underpinning of meaning, of learning to it, then that's wonderful. But the first and foremost, it has to just be a good, entertaining story.
Right. There's a moment in the movie Big, which I always think of as one of the least talked about moments, where Tom Hanks is still very much the child, and they give him this toy to play with.
That's right.
All right, and I forget what it was, but it was.
I remember that. Yeah.
He goes, I don't get it.
Yeah.
And they mean, what do you mean? Because the toy had marketed so well.
That's right.
I mean, I've got to believe at some point 2 years ago there was more than one imprint talking about, all right, how do we get two sisters who are different, who we can get a song that'll get on the radio, and how can we make that into a movie and a book, and and how many times is the potential marketing opportunities or the merch driving the design of the book?
Sure.
And then you've got that whole school of celebrities books
by
people who decide one day, because they're celebrities, that they're somehow...
That's a whole other conversation for another time.
Right.
But the story of the two sisters, which is obviously frozen and gathering from you, it's a great story.
Right.
That's why it works. Is they are great at storytelling. That story is really engaging. I mean, my son is 4 and he's enjoyed it. He knows it backwards and forwards. He's known it since he was 2. But I enjoy watching it too because I think it's a really good story. And there are themes underneath about family and about sisters and about being yourself, and there's all that. But on the surface, it's a really good story.
Right.
So.
And that's, I mean, I would imagine, and having seen my own daughters grow up, that in so many different ways, children are the most brutally honest people that you're ever going to meet.
For sure.
And so if the story is there, they're sitting quietly obsessed by it.
Yeah.
And if they're very young, they're asking you to reread it again and again and again.
Right.
And if it's not, it's just
they will
not.
tell you.
It's just,
and they will be very honest. That's all they know how to be. So.
Right. In reading your bio, you talk about your stories being sort of evolutions of your day-to-day experiences
Yes.
and things like that. Now, you've got a couple of books here. First of all, we got to talk about, was it Louie and Ralphie?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
The rats.
There's a story behind that.
All right. So, okay.
Sure.
And I know that's your current.
Yes, I'll show you this. So these are the two. This is the infamous Ratsos.
Yeah.
Where am I showing these? Hello.
Right over here.
Okay,
Yeah.
here. So this is the first in the series. This is a series of 4. It's called The Infamous Ratsos. It's a chapter book for ages 5 to 8. And it's about these two guys, Louie and Ralphie. They're brothers. They are rats. They live in the big city. They live with their dad, Big Lou.
Yeah.
And it's about their adventures. And all of these stories are really about kind of, they're really good stories, first and foremost. But each one of them is about sort of an issue of what it means to be a guy, what it means to be a boy or a man.
Mm-hmm.
In this book, they think that they need to be tough all the time. They
Right.
think that that's sort of they have to do that. But they realize that they're not tough guys. And in their hearts, they're really kind and helpful and generous. And they realize that it's much easier to be those things than to be tough.
Right.
And then this one just came out just a few weeks ago on September 12th. This is called The Infamous Ratsos Are Not Afraid. And in this one, every character in this book, it's revealed they're afraid of something,
Right.
including Louie and Ralphie, although they are reluctant to admit it.
Mm-hmm.
And so this book is about the fact that we are all, part of being human is being afraid, and that's okay. But it's all about how they come to terms with their fears and how they learn to deal with them and not let their fears get the best of them.
Right.
But when I first started to write these books, as I said, I was writing picture books at first, which are for much younger readers.
Right.
And my agent had said to me, "Oh, you should really try writing something for older readers." And I was just reluctant because I had never tried it before. And I just thought, well, I need to come up with a really good idea. If I'm going to do this, it's got to be a story I'm really into. And so maybe I'll just wait until the story comes to me. And right around the same time, my grandfather passed away. And I was very, very close with him. It's very sad. And he had grown up during the Great Depression. He had a brother. His name was Ralph. His brother was named Lou. And the Great Depression was hard on everyone. They had a single parent, their mom. Their dad had passed away when they were young, and so they were on their own a lot. And they had earned a reputation in their neighborhood for being troublemakers. So this is a story I heard all the time when I was growing up. And I always, when I heard that story, I would say, well, what kind of trouble did they get into? I wanted to know. Yeah. No one would tell me. I don't know if it was like, did they get into so much trouble? I doubt it, because I know my grandfather, he was very good at heart. But I was left to imagine what kind of trouble they got into. And so I was thinking about that when he passed away, thinking about good memories of him. I was thinking about that. And so I really started to kind of imagine, like, I wonder what kind of shenanigans those two got up to. Right. And that just kind of coincided with me needing to come up with an idea for this chapter book. And that's how The Infamous Ratsos was born. And their names are Louie and Ralphie. And, a lot of the things that,
Which does your son identify with? Is he Louie or Ralphie?
I don't know yet. That's really funny. I'm going to say hi to him because he's watching right now. He's past his bedtime. He's 4. But I don't know if we know yet. He's a very kind person. So maybe there's a little bit of both. There is a lot of my grandfather in him, though. I'll say that. Yeah.
Now, you've got a couple of other books. You've got the Bland Sisters.
I brought those too. So this is another one. This is for slightly older readers. This is for, I'd say, 7 to 12. This series is a series of 3 books. The Ratsos will be 4 books. The series is called The Unintentional Adventures of the Bland Sisters. The first book came out last January. This book is called The Jolly Regina. And this series is about these 2 girls. Their names are Jaundice and Kale Bland. They are they are the most boring girls. They're the most boring kids in the world. And each story is about what happens when they are plunged into an adventure and how these really, really boring kids deal with being experiencing a real adventure. And in this one, they're kidnapped by lady pirates, and so they have this adventure on the high seas, and it's all about how they deal with that despite being so bland.
Now, remember, you're talking to someone who grew up on the Bobbsey Twins and,
Yeah.
and the Hardy Boys.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So it's kind of yeah.
All right. Now,
They end up at the end of this book. It's funny you should say that. At the end of this book, they do end up reading, taking a book out of the library about the Mavens twins, and that's sort of based on the Bobbsey twins. It's
Okay.
like a little joke. Yes.
Okay. And of course, you've got, what is it? No slurping, no burping.
No slurping, no burping. I didn't bring my picture books, but that is a really good picture book. I think so, and it's about table manners. No slurping, no burping, a tale of table manners.
My wife will be having one autographed for you.
Yeah,
From me.
and that one was really fun to write. It was, I was asked to write a story about table manners by Disney. They were the publisher, and the illustrator, Laura Beauvais, is an incredible Disney animator.
Right.
And so they asked me to do a story about table manners, but I never like to do a book the way anyone else would write it. I'd like to put a very original spin on it. And I didn't want to do a book that was preachy and teachy about table manners, because that's super boring for kids and for me. And so in my book, the dad has really bad table manners.
I can't imagine that.
I'm sure you can't. I'm sure you can't relate. And the kids have excellent table manners, and they have to teach
So
the dad.
you wrote this at my house.
Well, I wrote it at my house, at my family. It kind of came from, I'm not going to name any names, but there are some family members in my life that could use this book. That could use a lesson, a little brush up. Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Now, can I put you on a spot for a little bit? Can you do a quick read of one of them?
Oh, I absolutely could. What would you like to hear?
Well, I actually probably
pick.
No slurping, no burping would have been
I don't have
instrumental.
that. I don't.
But,
yeah.
no,
I'll have to send you that. You can brush up. Yeah.
But something from the Bland Sisters.
Oh,
would be
sure,
great.
yeah. Okay, so this is from The Unintentional Adventures of the Bland Sisters, The Jolly Regina. I should mention that the Bland Sisters are so bland that the only book they read is the dictionary. And so every chapter starts with a definition from this dictionary.
Right.
So chapter 1, the definition is tepid, adjective, especially of a liquid, only slightly warm. If you ever find yourself on the road to Dullsville, you might encounter an unassuming house. In it reside the Bland sisters, Jaundice and Kale. You might tell the Bland sisters apart in several ways. First, Jaundice prefers to dress in gray, while Kale favors brown. Second, Kale wears her hair parted on the side, while Jaundice parts hers in the middle. Third, Jaundice is left-handed, while Kale is right-handed. Fourth, Kale is seldom seen without her backpack, in which she currently carries Dr. Nathaniel Snoot's Illustrated Children's Dictionary, a rather large leather-bound tome with a cracked spine reinforced with many layers of tape, a gold-stamped cover featuring the beatific silhouette of Dr. Snoot himself, and tabs along the side for each letter of the alphabet. The dictionary is the Bland sisters' favorite reading material and their main source of education. Carrying Dr. Snoot in her backpack is Kale's main source of physical and mental exercise. Fifth, Jaundice is known to wear a smock featuring an inordinate number of pockets. Being the more skilled seamstress of the two sisters, a skill learned from one of Dr. Snoot's educational sidebars called Know Your Stitches, Jaundice sewed this garment herself out of an old curtain and the upholstery of a long-since discarded couch. Usually the pockets contain such treasures as a sock-darning needle and thread, several milk bottle caps, a long shoelace with various knots tied in it, and half of yesterday's sandwich wrapped in a napkin. Jaundice tends to forget to empty her pockets before her smock goes into the wash, much to the chagrin of Kale, who does the laundry. Other than these few distinctions, the Bland sisters are just about the same. Is that good? I could go on, but I'll stop there.
Outstanding. Now, so you'll be at the festival again?
I will be there, yes.
All right, folks, again, if you're just joining us, this will be available on our YouTube channel. A delightful hour spent with some delightful people. This is, of course, I call it the Rhode Island Children's Book Festival, but there's a formal title to it.
Rhode Island Festival of Children's
Books and Authors, yes. All the information can be found at lincolnschool.org. Your website is caralareau.com, now spelled
That's right.
RALAREAU.
Yes,
.com.
and I appreciate you pronouncing my name correctly.
No, I watched the video.
That's good. That's good. Yes, that's why I have it on my website.
There's
You too can learn how to pronounce my name. Yes.
There you go. You'll be there. You'll be. You're doing one of the presentations?
I am, yes. I'm going to talk all about my childhood, and I will have all kinds of embarrassing childhood photos, and I'll talk about how I came to be a writer and how I came to write these books.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And your books will be for sale. Wonderful Christmas
Yes.
and Hanukkah presents.
Everything presents, yes.
Grandparents. That's my special appeal tonight, is grandparents.
Oh, yeah.
There are grandparents out there everywhere looking for ways to dote on their children. And I can
Sure.
think of no better way, no more life-affirming way than to buy a couple of your
That's
books.
right, and I'll have tons of swag too. I'll have bookmarks and cookies and all kinds of fun stuff to go with my books too.
Thank you so very much
Thank you.
for being here. Folks, again, the Rhode Island Children's Book Festival at the Lincoln School, 301 Butler Avenue, or as we say in Providence, or La Prove, at the end of the boulevard. There'll be a special event Friday evening. Again, a movie premiere, food, fun, Saturday, and this is key. Plan to spend the day there. There's going to be writing workshops, some really above average crafts, book related, are going to be there. Authors, it's just, what a great way to not only have a wonderful day with your child, but also by setting an example, a very powerful example, that to your children, how important reading is in their young lives. You set examples by engaging in it yourself. These are signals that they pick up on. If you're willing to invest an entire day, you've got the prospect of changing you or someone near you's life. Again, if you've got used children's books, Books or Wings are going to be there for you to donate. Look at it as you're clearing out the basement, and at the same time, a bunch of great kiddos are going to get books that they might not have otherwise seen. So sharing is caring.